Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Get in the Driver's Seat of Health with Plant-Based Nutrition. We are featuring a lot of wonderful speakers this evening, and I want to be sure that we can hear everybody. So please be sure to mute your line if you are not already muted. We're going to be actively using the chat tonight. If you are able to, please go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat box. Tell us where you're tuning in from and why you're here, what you hope to learn, a little something to help us understand who's joining us this evening. My name is Leanna Levine-Reisner. I'm the Network Director of Plant Powered Metro New York, a community-based organization that is focused on bringing the message of healing and hope of plant-based nutrition to our communities. Recognizing that a diet of mostly unprocessed plant-based foods is really critical for our communities in overcoming chronic illness. I'm joined by my colleagues at SUNY Downstate's Committee on Plant-Based Health and Nutrition, and by Rachel Atchison from the Office of Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. And our speakers will be joining us shortly. I want to turn it over now to Beth Helsner from SUNY Downstate to give a little introduction of her work with her team. Go ahead, Beth.
Thanks so much, Leanna. It's really delightful to be here. Dr. Richard Rosenfeld and I are delighted to be here on behalf of SUNY Downstate's Committee on Plant-Based Health and Nutrition. Our committee was formed to find ways to integrate plant-based health into resident training, medical student education, and the overall culture at SUNY Downstate, as well as our surrounding community. Our group's now comprised of over 50 people. It's really a multidisciplinary team. It's made up of physicians, nurses, dietitians, food service managers, administrators, medical educators, public health advocates, resident physicians, medical students, and also interested community members, including faith leaders. So it's really just become a wonderful group of people, all dedicated to the same mission. Our group serves in an advisory capacity to the plant-based initiatives that are spearheaded by the Brooklyn Borough President's Office, Eric Adams. And our group regularly reviews the current evidence for plant-based nutrition in peer-reviewed medical journals, and we've used that review of the evidence as a basis for our position statements, evidence summaries, brochures. We have a website that showcases all of this information. We regularly plan lectures and conferences and participate in community events, health fairs to promote understanding and awareness of plant-based health and nutrition. Today, we have an amazing lineup of truly world-class speakers, very inspirational people today. The people we're going to hear from today have been incredibly inspiring to me personally, and I'm sure to a lot of us. We're going to start off with a welcome from Rachel Atchison, who is a representative from the Brooklyn Borough President's Office. Then we'll hear from Susan Benigas, the Executive Director of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. She's going to be speaking about the promise of lifestyle medicine and how we can take health into our own hands. After the discussion with Susan, we will welcome in renowned nutrition expert, Dr. Michael Greger. He will be responding to some of the questions that you had all sent to us ahead of this program. So I really can't wait to hear what everyone has to share with us. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rachel Atchison from the Brooklyn Borough President's Office.
Thank you so much, Beth. And this is absolutely terrific that we have almost 100 people already, and people no longer have the ability to be that late to events. So the fact that we have 91 people only 10 minutes into this meeting is terrific. So my name is Rachel Atchison. I'm Deputy Strategist for Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. For those who are not aware of his story, about 4 years ago, he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and he was at such a severe stage that he was actually blind in his left eye and had tingling in his fingers and toes. And he went to 5 doctors. They all kind of said the same thing, that he'd have to be on insulin the rest of his life. But he decided to dig a little deeper and actually went out to the Cleveland Clinic and saw Dr. Esselstyn and started on a whole food plant-based diet lifestyle journey, and has been, within a 3-month period, was able to reverse his diabetes completely, regain eyesight, no more tingling in his fingers and toes, and truly became passionate about this issue. And so for his personal journey, allowed me to come on to his team to work full time on pushing plant-based nutrition throughout government. Because if we know that there is a lifestyle that can indeed reverse our worst chronic illnesses in the city, then indeed other people should probably be looking into this as well. So the initiatives that we've been able to work on in the past 2 years have been Meatless Mondays, getting them into all New York City's schools, hospitals, jails. We've been able to start the Bellevue Plant-Based Lifestyle Medicine Program, headed up by Dr. Michelle McMacken, who is a true legend in the field. She started a program at Bellevue that we expected to have between 100 and 200 patients. And in its first year, it has nearly 800 people on the waiting list. So we know that there is intense demand for this. And so we, as an office, have been advocating for the expansion within our public hospital system, health and hospitals, as well as within the voluntary hospitals throughout Brooklyn. And things we are working on right now include looking at food access issues such as the SNAP program. We're actually in conversations with Tufts to talk about their SNAP Plus program that we're looking at expanding into New York City. We're working with Harvard's Food Policy Law Clinic on looking on urging New York City government as well as New York State government to increase nutrition education in med schools. So those are just a few of the things that we have going on in our shop. And we are always open to hearing from you on what else we could be doing. So I'm going to put my name and email in the chat. Feel free always to get in touch. We are so enthusiastic about this event. We're honored to constantly work with SUNY Downstate. They have been a phenomenal partner. And Plant Powered Metro New York is the true, they run the show in New York City, and we're so honored to partner with them constantly. So with that, I know the plug of our event, we are hosting an event with them in August, but I know that Leanna is going to talk also about an upcoming event in July 1st. So there's lots to always be aware of, and thank you so much for hosting this event tonight.
Thanks so much, Rachel. And now we're going to turn it over to Dr. Rich Rosenfeld, who will introduce our first speaker, Susan Benigas.
Thanks. Yeah, you know, it's really amazing to see that the interest in this. And since we're ahead of schedule, I'll just take a few moments to say that, you know, the committee at Downstate is an idea I had a couple of years ago, inspired by my sons, who are all whole food, plant-based vegans. Still working on my wife, but she's on the webinar, so maybe she'll shift a little bit, but she's going in the right direction. But you know, you start on this journey, and I think we all have our personal success. And you know, I thought, gee, it'd be a great idea to see if we could start something at Downstate, which is a major health science center, university. I think, you know, in addition, we have the public health school. We have a bunch of other schools, health professions, nursing, graduate studies, and what am I leaving out? Health-related professions, nursing, public health, of course, and the medical school. And I must say, I never would have expected it to take this course. I'm an ear, nose, and throat guy, and I do a lot of work nationally with guidelines and quality work, but I've never seen people so passionate about what they do. And so from so many different walks of life, even just to organize this, you know, here we have Leanna, who's pulled together the entire metropolitan New York community into her network, Beth Helsner, who's really brought the whole School of Public Health into this. Rachel, you all know, with Eric Adams, I mean, the work they're doing is phenomenal. There's probably no other borough president we could ask for to be involved. Susan at American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And then we have Mike Greger coming on, who all of you know. So I think it's just amazing, the passion, the diversity, the interesting people. And if we could go through all more than 100 of you on the video now, I'm sure we just have endless diversity and interest in seeing what you do. So welcome. Let me introduce Susan Benigas. I met Susan through Rachel a couple of years ago. She said, yeah, you guys should talk. Was fortunate enough to have some in-person discussions with her at the Javits Center when they had the international, the Plant World Conference last year. But Susan is a powerhouse beyond measure. She's currently the executive director for the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which she'll be telling you about. But that's a young group, maybe 15 years or so in existence now, with 5 or 6 years with a board certification program. And, you know, she's just worked with countless folks and really upped the interest in that society exponentially. It's growing as fast as you can imagine, and it's growing with people from all walks of life, not just physicians, but, you know, dietitians, nutritionists, students, health professionals. I couldn't begin to imagine the diversity of their audience, which I think is very exciting. Susan also is the co-founder of, you've probably heard of the Plantrician Project, and that produces an international plant-based nutrition healthcare conference, plus lots of other resources to support plant-based initiatives and professionals. But really, Susan is a mover and shaker. I mean, she gets things done. Woe is me for expressing interest in American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So now a year and a half or so after that, I find myself engaged in like a weekly Zoom call with her folks through their expert committee, their research committee. We're going to come out with a very, I think, impactful expert consensus statement on type 2 diabetes management with whole food plant-based diets in adults. That's getting off the ground. We're starting some mentoring programs, and that's just the things I know about in addition to getting board certified myself. So, you know, lifestyle medicine, and Susan will tell you, but it's medicine. You know, it's really a treatment. And I think the wonderful news here, especially in this crazy COVID time we're in, is a message of empowerment that, you know, it's your own lifestyle choices and behaviors that really influence not just your life in general, but how you do with COVID or any other situation. And, you know, some of those behaviors we're stuck with, they're ingrained, or they're cultural, or they're a result of our, you know, socioeconomic status or resources, but many of them are within our capacity to change for the better at very low cost. It just takes some effort and persistence. So with that, I will turn it over to Susan, let her take control, and we'll have her presentation and then some Q&A afterwards. So Susan,
thank you, Rich. Thank you so much. My goodness, it is such a pleasure to be with all of you tonight. And I can't help but think about that quote that many of you probably know by Margaret Mead, right? It's like, never forget that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, because indeed it's the only thing that ever has. And if this isn't a thoughtful group of committed citizens, you know, where else could you find one? And it is truly, truly inspiring. You know, as Rich mentioned, I'll just briefly give an overview before I dive into my presentation and share my screen with you. But as Rich mentioned, it was back in 2012 that I really cast this vision for the Plantrician Project. And Plantrician is plant-based nutrition combined with physician, so a plantrician. And the reason for that was I was president of a worksite health promotion company years prior to that, doing what everyone else did in that field. We'd go in and do biometric screenings, health risk assessments. When anyone was found to have a chronic condition or risk factor, the status quo approach was to tell them to see your physician and get a script, and then you beat the drum of medication persistency. Because we have this disease and disability care system that's focused on disease management, not really on curing the disease. And I became really disillusioned. I thought, I just don't believe that God designed us all to become chronically ill and dependent on pharmaceuticals. And it was at that time that I was introduced to an oncologist here in St. Louis, where I live. This was in the fall of 2007. And she started talking about what poor health she had found herself in: fibromyalgia, a skin condition, arthritis. And she held up a book and she said, but this book has changed my life, and it's changing the lives of many of my patients. And it was the China study by T. Colin Campbell, who I would assume many of you have read, you've heard of. Well, back then, the book hadn't been out very long. I'd never heard of Dr. Campbell or the China study, but I went out and bought the book. And based on the questions I was starting to have about really healthcare and worksite health promotion, it was the most paradigm shifting read of my adult life, because it not only connected the dots between our food choices and our optimal health or lack thereof, but it really connected the dots in showing that we didn't really have a health care system, but this disease and disability care system. And it rocked my world, totally changed the trajectory of my personal and professional life, and why I ended up going on casting the vision for the Plantrician Project, co-founding it with Dr. Scott Stoll and Tom Dunham, which then, as Rich said, began producing the International Plant-Based Nutrition Healthcare Conference in the fall of 2013, and every year since then, was that we had to reach medical professionals. Because take a Rich Rosenfeld, for example. When Rich embraced lifestyle medicine and food as medicine, because he's a physician and touches thousands of patients, he has exponential impact. And so that's why the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which I joined as their executive director in the spring of 2014, was to be this catalyst of transformational change by reaching medical professionals so that they too, like Rich has already done, begins to be educated in, embraces, integrates into their own lives, into their professional practices, lifestyle medicine. And so with that, I will share my screen and just say too that to Rich's point, we are seeing exponential growth just within the organization, over 600% increase in membership in the last 5 years alone. And I think that the medical professionals are hungry for a way to really practice health care. And lifestyle medicine and food as medicine is what enables that. And it's what even Hippocrates over 2,000 years ago would say, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And the Hippocratic oath, right? To first do no harm. And that's what lifestyle medicine permits. So I will share my screen. And so there we go. Now I will move this down. So there we go. Excuse me, I am like trying to scoot this down. Okay, so today we're going to talk about lifestyle medicine and even talk about how this crosses over to something that we all have been dealing with now for many months, and why COVID-19 has shown such a bright light on the urgent need for lifestyle medicine to become the foundation of a transformed and sustainable system of healthcare delivery. So the American College of Lifestyle Medicine was founded in 2014 as Rich said, and it is the nation's medical professional association for physicians, allied health professionals who are all united and dedicated to this lifestyle medicine first approach to healthcare. So rather than disease management, it's truly about health restoration being the ultimate desired outcome. This is a picture of Dr. Dexter Sherney, who is our president right now. Dexter is just an incredible visionary. He has, when he became president about a year and a half ago, he said his priorities were policy, payment, partnerships, and then health disparities. And that's something that we're going to talk about today, because as Liana even mentioned before, it's like whole food, plant-based nutrition, lifestyle medicine, it's health, it's hope, it's healing for everyone. And the world really needs, and our nation needs lifestyle medicine to become the foundation of healthcare. So what's the definition of lifestyle medicine? It's the use of a whole food, plant predominant dietary lifestyle, regular physical activity, restorative sleep, stress management, the avoidance of risky substances, and positive social connection as a primary therapeutic modality for treatment and reversal of chronic disease. You know, we hear a lot about prevention, and prevention's important, and lifestyle medicine delivers prevention too. But we really, the urgent need because of our obesity rates, our chronic disease rates, is to focus on treating and reversing those conditions. And so it's treating root causes. Most of our healthcare system right now is focused on diagnosing symptoms and treating those symptoms with ever increasing quantities of pills and procedures. And while modern medicine has its place, we need the first treatment approach to be to identify and eradicate the cause, to really look at the root problem. And it does, it reignites the passion for why so many went into the practice of medicine to become true healers. So it is definitely the kind of healthcare we need, because we have a chronic disease epidemic in this country, as we well know. Healthcare costs in this country, 3.3 trillion annually. 85% or more of this spending is attributed to the treatment of chronic disease, which I often says is a good news statistic, because it means we can do something about it if we really empower people with the truth about how they can take far greater control of their health destinies. You know, we have 60% of American adults in this country that have at least one chronic condition. 42% have two or more chronic conditions, and many of these are conditions such as heart disease and hypertension, type 2 diabetes, that didn't even exist at the turn of the century in our population. Sadly, type 2 diabetes can no longer be referred to as adult onset as it used to be, because now too many young people are being diagnosed with what truly is a food-borne illness that's preventable, treatable, and often reversible through the power of whole food, plant-based nutrition and lifestyle medicine. And, you know, less than 3% of Americans live what is defined as a healthy lifestyle. So the time is now. We really have to take control and be this galvanized force for change. A pill for every ill. We have 70% of all Americans, 90% of seniors taking prescription meds. We spend more in this country on prescription medications than the rest of the world combined. And we in New Zealand are the only two countries on the face of the earth that allow direct-to-consumer advertising for pharmaceuticals. So we really condition people to believe that they're going to age, become chronically ill, and that they need to just manage that disease for a lifetime, that it's just inevitable. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And that's the good news of lifestyle medicine. Just last week, the Washington Post published findings of the CDC, recent CDC data. And it talked about that patients with underlying conditions were 12 times as likely to die of COVID-19 as otherwise healthy people. So as I said before, these recent events have shown a bright light on this urgent need, because the reality is every 3 to 4 days in this country, as many as 1,600 to 1,800 people die of heart disease. I'd say that's a pandemic, but it's just accepted as inevitable. And yet we live in the pandemic of chronic disease that COVID-19 has just exacerbated, because we have compromised immunity that creates such vulnerability. And so when we look at those who've been hospitalized with COVID-19, 45.4% had underlying health conditions as compared to 7.6% who did not. And a lot of other data that's been coming out of your home state, New York, about the prevalence of chronic diseases in those who were most severely impacted by COVID. So those who were hospitalized, the prevalence of obesity, 42%, type 2 diabetes, 34%, hypertension, 57%. And so again, we need to, it's almost when an earthquake strikes and buildings and bridges fall, and then we wake up and realize we need to come back in and really undergird the foundation of those buildings and those bridges. Well, the same is true now. COVID-19 has been like an earthquake, and we did not have strong infrastructure of our health. So hopefully it's a wake-up call so we can take control and really educate, equip, and empower people to protect their health, prevent disease, reverse their disease, so we can be better prepared for the next pandemic that comes along. So confirmed cases of COVID-19 by race, it really also emphasized in recent months health disparities. Because when we looked at hospitalization rates, Native Americans and Alaskan Natives were 5 times more likely than Caucasians to be hospitalized. Blacks, 4.5% times more likely, and the Hispanic population, 4 times more likely to be hospitalized than the white population. And this is something that's a real priority for the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. We'll soon be convening a health disparity solutions summit led by our health equity through lifestyle medicine member interest group, because we really want to take this as an opportunity to address these issues head on. Diet is the leading cause of chronic disease. You know, we talk about the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, but it truly is diet that is more of a precursor to disease or health. We know that every bite we take is either one step toward health or one step in the opposite direction. And last year, the Global Burden of Disease report was issued by the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation, which is the world's largest data repository that's based up in Washington State. It's funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And in this Global Burden of Disease report, the findings were, in looking at data from over 190 countries around the world, including the United States, that it's what people were and were not eating that was the leading cause of disease and death in the world. So what are we eating? There's many different estimates on this, but this is one that I often like to show. On average, the standard American diet is 53% packaged processed foods, 32% animal products, meat, dairy, etc., 11% fruits and vegetables, of which French fries is included, as is ketchup, and 4% whole grains. And we wonder why we're overfed, undernourished, nutrient starved, fiber deficient, because the way we're eating is truly killing us. And the time for change is now, and that is what you're leading the charge in doing. Whole food, plant-based. It's the foods that grow from the ground and as close to nature's package as possible that are the foods that are fiber-filled, nutrient-dense, antioxidant rich. It's these foods that protect our health, fight disease, and we must shift to a whole food, plant predominant dietary lifestyle. So lifestyle medicine is the simple, powerful therapy. And again, those 6 pillars, it's nutrition, sleep, exercise, avoidance of risky substances, stress management, and social connection. And so what ACLM advocates is that lifestyle medicine become the foundation of all healthcare, where this is the first treatment approach, always. So every physician, every medical professional, when they have that patient encounter, first and foremost, they attempt to identify and eradicate the root cause of disease before opting for other treatments and other types of interventions, which we're fortunate we have, but that shouldn't be the first option. The first option should be to treat the root cause. So ACLM is an organization. I would say that our very top priority is filling the gaping void that exists in regard to medical education, because we know that the vast majority of physicians and allied health professionals, they've not had the benefit of learning about this as part of their traditional medical education. So for that reason, ACLM is developing a robust series of educational tools. These are some tools that you can find at lifestylemedicine.org if you click on COVID resources. So these are types of patient-facing flyers that talk about building immunity and lifestyle medicine and even resources for providers. So there's a robust offering of these types of tools and resources on our website. And then education initiatives. We have a learning management system where we offer a wide array of online courses, typically targeted for medical professionals. And then these resources, like I just showed you, that they then use for their patients. And we also do live educational events as well. And the reason being is that so few physicians and medical professionals have been trained on this. Some estimates are as low as 3 hours of education on clinical nutrition. And that would be like 3 60-minute time periods, not a 3-hour course that lasts over a semester. And so when we know that it's what we eat and do not eat that's the leading cause of disease and death, well, it's certainly important that our medical professionals become trained in evidence-based lifestyle medicine and food as medicine. So ACLM covers the continuum with resources and educational curricula from bachelor level all the way through to medical education, residency, continuing medical education, on to certification, and now maintenance of certification. So across the whole continuum, because while we focus on medical education, which is so important, but we already have 420,000 already practicing family care physicians in this country, another 500,000 all other physicians, and then 5 million nurses and more. So we need to reach those who are already practicing as well. And some of the resources that we have, Lifestyle Medicine 101, which is a robust curriculum with all sorts of PowerPoints, a handbook, a syllabus. The Lifestyle Medicine syllabus is a free download on our website, a 50-page syllabus. It's been downloaded hundreds of times, well over 1,000 times by physicians in more than 80 countries. And this is a resource for undergrad medical education that's sometimes also used in graduate. We have lifestyle medicine interest groups that are emerging on medical school campuses and other campuses that offer healthcare related training all across the country. And it's very exciting to see the young people who are the future leaders of our healthcare system really being passionate about this. Again, because most go into medicine because they really want to be true healers, and that's what lifestyle medicine enables them to do. So you can learn more if you visit our website, or if you have questions, write to trainees@lifestylemedicine.org. We have Taste of Lifestyle Medicine grants through generous support of foundation underwriting. We give hundreds of these grants away every single year to medical students or medical school faculty that pays for plant-based foods at events that they run on their campuses. And so there haven't been many people on campuses here of late, but hopefully again soon. And that's what these grants are for. The culinary medicine curriculum. This was developed by Michelle Hauser, former board member out of Stanford University, a robust curriculum that's available as a free resource through our website. And this is now being integrated into educational training all across the country. So I would encourage you to check this out. And then our Food is Medicine 101 for Medical Professionals course is in development. We expect it to debut in September of this year. And I think it'll be a tremendous resource to our healthcare professionals, as well as another course that will soon launch, Reversing Type 2 Diabetes and Insulin Resistance with Lifestyle Medicine. The lead faculty on this has been Dr. John Kelly, pictured here, who's the founding president of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And type 2 diabetes, you know, many would say that it is truly a looming global pandemic. But as I said before, it is a food-borne illness that is preventable, treatable, and often even reversible through optimal dietary lifestyle intervention. And who could be a better spokesperson and champion for this message than our very own Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, and for the work that he and Rachel are doing to really amplify this message, because we know that facts don't change behavior, stories do. And so it's a powerful story like Eric Adams' story that can send ripple effects across this country. We were honored to have him as our opening keynote, along with our board member, Dr. Michelle McMacken, at last year's conference. And so, hey, we believe that we can conquer this, and we're working hard to do it together. We also have a residency curriculum that's rolling out through medical residency programs across this country. And so if you know of any medical residency programs that might be interested in this, please send them our direction. And then, as I mentioned before, we have over 24 member interest groups, with one being Health Equity Achieved Through Lifestyle Medicine. We have wonderful leaders who are part of this group and very committed to addressing how lifestyle medicine can become a powerful solution to addressing health disparities in this country. A live event. We will be doing what normally is a live in-person event, but this year, this fall, it will be a live virtual event, Lifestyle Medicine 2020. And with the theme is Health Restored, for all the reasons we've talked about today. And have an incredible lineup of presenters covering topics from Food as Medicine. Will open with our Legends of Lifestyle Medicine panel that features all of our previous Lifetime Achievement Award winners, Drs. Dean Ornish, Caldwell Esselstyn, T. Colin Campbell, John McDougall, and just an action-packed lineup that will cover everything from sleep to social connection and more. So I really encourage you to check this out as well. And definitely, if you're not a medical professional, no doubt you have a medical professional, and encourage them, if they are not already plugged into this, be a catalyst for change in their lives and their practice. And then certification, as Rich mentioned earlier, the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine debuted in 2017 and now offers certification in the field. They certify MDs and DOs, while the American College of Lifestyle Medicine serves as a certification body for master's level, PhDs, and select bachelor's level medical professionals. And for the only time in recent history, and probably in history to come, certification exams are being offered online for this year and this year only. I'll just end with a couple of funnies that I think really drive home the point. So in this one, the Wizard of ID, you see that the doctor says, I can operate or you can go on a healthy diet. And the patient says, well, you better operate. The doctor says, are you sure? And the patient says, my insurance doesn't cover a healthy diet. And then the next one, which I think, again, the winds of change are blowing. Patient, doctor, and patient says, how much longer do I have where I have to change to a healthy lifestyle? And this comes back that it is time that we really unite around this, because healthcare is not an individual resource. It is a shared resource. We are all in this together. And we need to understand that the number one cause of virtually all our chronic disease, the number one cause of our most pressing global sustainability issues are one and the same. It's our toxic, westernized industrial diet, the standard American diet. And yet, if we choose to shift to a whole food, plant predominant dietary lifestyle, that's not only what's best for our health, what will protect our health and fight disease, but it will also enable us to preserve our natural resources and feed what soon will be 9 billion people on the face of the earth, because it's also inextricably connected. And yet the power of our food choices is the most actionable thing any of us can do. And we can start today and encourage our family, our friends to do so. It's best for our health and best for everything else in our life. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. Here's some key email addresses that you can jot down, and visit lifestylemedicine.org to learn more. And then, of course, as a founding board member of the Plantrician Project, another great resource there. You can access the Plant-Based Nutrition Quick Start Guide. That's a great resource through the Plantrician Project, and so many other great resources that are now out there that weren't available just a few short years ago. This is how we know that the winds of change truly are blowing in the right direction. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Susan, for the comprehensive and inspiring message. We have about 8 or 9 minutes for some questions. So who's ever not, can we go on mute, please, if you're not speaking, which should be pretty much everyone except myself and Susan right now. So I'm going to ask you to do these kind of as a lightning round so we can get in the questions that have popped up. So the first one is one I was going to ask you, but someone else thought of it. You know, I know you've put the diet and nutrition sort of at the center of the lifestyle medicine, but, you know, how important is nutrition per se and diet, you know, relative to the regular physical activity, getting adequate sleep, managing stress, you know, connections, avoiding risky substances? Is there a hierarchy, or, you know, where does nutrition and diet fit into LM?
Well, again, we know that evidence shows, because everything that we've talked about today, it's all evidence-based, right? And so we know that all of these factors, the 6 pillars that we call them of lifestyle medicine, are all very, very important. But we also know that food trumps all, because you can certainly not smoke, exercise, maybe manage your stress, but if you're eating a horrible diet, the benefits gained from the other healthful behaviors will be jeopardized by the unhealthful diet. And so it really is the optimal dietary lifestyle of a whole food, plant predominant cannot be underestimated. So it definitely is the centerpiece of the lifestyle medicine message.
Thanks. Yeah, and I'd agree. It's the starting point. And talking about nutrition a little bit, someone early on sort of asked, well, gee, what's the best diet if you want to focus on, you know, your lipid profile, your high density lipoprotein, low density triglycerides, and, you know, so do we have to tailor it for each disease, or if we just stick to whole food plant based, are we going to take care of it?
You know, it's so interesting, Rich. That's a great question, because I think that, well, what we know is that confusion can really be very profitable. And so if you really make the public think that this is confusing and complicated and there's formulas, and that means that products and things can be developed to enable that. And yet that's why this health, hope, and healing of lifestyle medicine is so powerful, because it's really about focusing on consuming that which grows from the ground and as close to nature's package as possible. How simple is that? Because we know that if it doesn't grow from the ground, well, let's put it this way, only foods that grow from the ground have fiber. And most of us why do we spend over $2 billion in this country on laxatives, right? Because we are fiber deficient. And so it's those foods that grow from the ground and as close to nature's package as possible. Those are the ones that are fiber-filled, nutrient-dense, antioxidant rich. Those are the ones that help to protect our health and fight disease. And so it can be a very simple message. And we find that that there's really very little differential in dealing with whether someone has heart disease or type 2 diabetes or hypertension. It's by and large the same message, and it's about getting people to shift to that whole food, plant predominant dietary lifestyle.
I think that's just so empowering, and it's just so simplifying, and that you learn the principles of whole food plant-based. And for those of you who want to learn more about that, if you visit, I sent earlier the link to our website at Downstate, but we have a very nice guide to get it started eating in whole food plant-based cooking. And it's not all or none. It's a shift to the plant-based and to the whole foods, and anyone can do it, and it can be done very cheaply, actually. All you need is a grain, and a bean on your plate, and you're set. And last time I checked, putting a grain, and a bean on a plate is not terribly expensive. Another question, Susan, and you know, it's sort of about the doctors who are skeptics, and it sort of harks back to, I know Dr. Greger is speaking in a few moments, but he has a great video making analogy to the situation with smoking in the 60s, about how, you know, gee, why didn't physicians embrace this? Well, because they were all smokers at the time, and you look kind of silly, you know, admitting that you're smoking, killing yourself, and then give advice to your patients. So given that the preferred way to entertain physicians by drug companies is to take them out to an expensive steakhouse, And very few of them, to my knowledge, that I speak with are really embracing vegetarianism, much less whole food plant-based diets. If you're a patient or someone who wants to spread the word, how do you approach these people? What do you do to get the conversation going, knowing that they're already probably not too interested?
Yeah, well, you know, the teacher comes when the student is ready, right? And so the Plantrician Project's tagline is planting the seeds of change. And that's very intentional because I believe in what all of us are doing. We're planting the seeds of change. And we don't know when those will really germinate and take root in somebody's life. I think, Rich, though, when we look at our, you know, the evolution of the healthcare system that we have today, that, as I said, is very much focused on being a disease and disability care system. Because, you know, I know when I read the China study in 2007, it was like the blinding flash of the obvious that, oh my gosh, there's not a lot of profit in really good health, but there's immense profit in disease. And, you know, that's hard to accept, but it's true. And yet we're now at the point that we teeter on the brink of healthcare cost-induced bankruptcy in this country. We cannot sustain the continued upward trajectory of chronic disease and the associated costs. And the fact of the matter is, an insolvent nation isn't going to be good for anyone's business. And so I wake up every morning on a mission to preserve the solvency of the country. And so when we look at the evolution of our healthcare system, as I mentioned in the slides I just shared, there's been very little training over many decades now in medical education as it relates to what we're talking about today. Very little education on clinical nutrition. So you end up, we have throngs of highly educated physicians and medical professionals that, no fault of their own, they were not trained in this. And then cognitive dissonance comes into play because, you know, highly trained medical professionals that are so ingrained in their belief system, when something like this comes along, food is medicine, it so flies in the face of their frame of reference and their paradigm that there's almost this attempt to discredit, to refute, to undermine. Yet there's so much momentum now and more science. I mean, the science is already overwhelming in its support of the efficacy of using food as medicine and lifestyle medicine to not only prevent, but to treat and reverse. So I think, Rich, to your point, I mean, look at the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. We will add more new members in the month of June, this month, than in any other month in the history of our organization. In the last 2 weeks of May, we added more new members than in any other 2-week period in the history of the organization. Over 600% growth in 5 years. And we're really not doing anything for that. It's just this organic growth because physicians are beginning to hear about this.
Lots of hope out there.
And they're just, it's like a magnet. They're coming and they want to be part of the change that you're all already helping to lead the way, Rich.
I think ACLM is putting out incredible resources, and the pressure is going to come from all around, from the community with Leanne's work, from the politicians and leaders, through Rachel. We're pushing through the public health school, the medical school, and I think everyone on this webinar, you know, push your own doctors, your own people, your own friends and family. It really has a lot of impact. So thank you, Susan. That was a great discussion, and I believe we're ready for the main event.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. That was fantastic. And now we have the real privilege to welcome Dr. Michael Greger, who's a physician, author of the amazing books, How Not to Die, How Not to Diet, and now How to Survive a Pandemic. He is a founding member and fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and an internationally known speaker who has lectured at the National Institute of Health and has testified before Congress. He's a graduate of Cornell University School of Architecture and Tufts University School of Medicine. Currently, Dr. Greger serves as the Director of Public Health and Animal Agriculture at the Humane Society of the United States. Hundreds of his nutrition videos are available for free on nutritionfacts.org. with new videos uploaded every day. So Dr. Greger, it is truly a delight to have you join us today, and let's jump into it.
Happy to help, though I haven't worked at HSUS for years. I don't know where you got that bio.
Hi, Dr. Greger. I'm going to walk you through a lot of questions tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I think this is a perfect transition from Susan's big picture of the field to really digging into some of the details about why plant-based nutrition is so critically important for health. We took a lot of questions from registration, so I want to thank everybody for sending those into us in advance, but please do put some in the chat as we go, and I'll try to get to them. We're not going to get to everybody's, but so here we go. Let's start talking about COVID-19 in particular. Will a plant-based diet help mitigate the effects of COVID-19 for those who have sort of more extreme respiratory illnesses, asthma, for example?
Well, I mean, first of all, taking a step back, consider the underlying conditions associated with COVID-19 severity and death: hypertension, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease, all of which can be prevented, arrested, or reversed with a healthy enough plant-based diet and lifestyle. And you don't have to be obese. Excess body fat alone seems to be a risk factor independent of diabetes. At a BMI of 28, which is like being 175 pounds at the average American height, puts you at nearly 6 times the odds of suffering a severe COVID-19 course. You know, the average BMI in the United States is 29. So even being skinnier than the average American, you can still have so much excess body fat that you're at 6 times the odds of a severe course. That's why we should really take advantage of the time we have right now. For those of us privileged enough not have to be on the front lines, to take this time to take care of ourselves. Sufficient sleep, reducing stress, staying connected, albeit remotely, with friends and family, keeping active, and eating a healthy diet.
Excellent. And there have been some questions about supplementation. Generally, when we talk about whole foods, we're just talking about food. We're not talking about supplements. But are there specific supplements that you think are particularly helpful during this pandemic, or should we just stick to the plant foods?
Well, there are some really amazing studies out there showing that simple foods, for example, can boost our immune function, like randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials showing that eating broccoli sprouts, for example, can reduce viral loads for influenza, decrease virus-induced inflammation, and boost our antiviral natural killer cell activity, all from just eating broccoli. But this isn't the flu. Unlike other common viruses, coronaviruses have not been shown to cause more severe disease in immunocompromised patients. Why? Because it's our own immune response that appears to be the main driver of lung tissue damage during infection. Starting around the 2nd week of symptoms, the virus can trigger what's called a cytokine storm. It's like an autoimmune reaction where your body overreacts, and in attacking the coronavirus, your lungs get caught in the crossfire, and in burning down the village in order to save it, we might not survive the process. So that's why I certainly recommend general common sense advice to stay healthy in a crisis, but would not go out of one's way to take supplements or eat specific foods to boost any particular element of the immune system until we understand more about this particular virus.
Absolutely. Thank you. And do you have any nutritional tips for helping people manage anxiety during these times?
If you type in anxiety into nutritionfacts.org, a bunch of videos come up. We do know that people who eat plant-based only have about half the odds of being either depressed or suffering from anxiety. But until just a few years ago, we didn't know if it was cause and effect. Maybe people who are more mentally healthy tend to eat better, rather than those who eat better tend to become more mentally healthy. We didn't know. What we needed was an interventional trial, and that was finally done at the University of Arizona, where they took people eating the standard American diet, randomized them in a bunch of different groups. One was continuing to eat that miserable diet, and another was randomized to remove meat, poultry, eggs from one's diet, thinking that it's the arachidonic acid, this long chain inflammatory omega-6 fat that's found predominantly in chicken and eggs, but throughout the animal kingdom. So they said, well, let's remove chicken, remove eggs, remove other meat from people's diet and see if we can improve mood. And they got a significant improvement in mood within just 2 weeks. Significant improvement in symptoms. That included a drop in anxiety, a drop in symptoms of depression. This was the first, and I believe only to date, randomized controlled trial with a dietary intervention to show a significant improvement in mental health parameters. And so that's really exciting. Now, there certainly has been other research done on specific foods for generalized anxiety disorder, not just feelings of anxiousness, but actually being diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. I have a video talking about butternut squash seeds as a way to improve mood. And there was a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial. They made people bars, one with or without these butternut squash seeds, and saw a significant improvement in anxiety symptoms for those getting the butternut squash seeds. And I talk about exactly why that's the case, and it has to do with certain neurotransmitter precursors found in certain plant foods.
Excellent, thank you. Going on to other conditions, is it possible to transition a dialysis patient to a whole food plant-based diet and effectively heal the kidneys?
Once you're on dialysis, the kidneys are gone for good. And that's why it's so critical to slow down, stop, and reverse kidney function, the loss of kidney function in the early stages. But what dialysis patients can do by eating healthier is they can reduce the dramatically exaggerated risks they have for many of our leading killers like heart disease. So the number one killer of people on dialysis is still heart disease. And that's something we can do about eating healthier. But otherwise, those on dialysis have a dramatically shortened lifespan. And so it's even more important for them to eat healthy. They just have to do it under the very close supervision of a special brand of dietitian called renal dietitians, because unlike people with normal or even ailing kidney function, there are certain electrolytes like potassium and phosphorus within plant foods that can build up to too high levels if you don't have kidneys that are constantly flushing them out. And so it's not just a willy-nilly whole food plant-based diet, but a very carefully designed diet, but critically important to eat particularly healthy for those who are relying on machines to filter their blood.
Excellent. How about for those who have thyroid conditions, is it safe for them to eat cruciferous vegetables?
Absolutely. It's safe for everyone to eat cruciferous vegetables. The only caveat is you shouldn't overdo raw cruciferous, and one should make sure one has adequate iodine intake, because what these so-called goitrogenic compounds in broccoli, cruciferous in general, soy foods, flax seeds, it can interfere with the uptake of iodine into your thyroid gland. And so if you have inadequate iodine intake, that can create a problem. It does not cause a problem if you have enough iodine. Where are you going to get iodine? The healthiest source is actually sea vegetables. So I encourage people to develop a taste for like nori sheets. You know, they make sushi rolls out of. You can get cheap packs of 50 sheets of nori, chew on them as a snack. And they're delicious. You're snacking on dark green leafy vegetables, super healthy, one of my favorite snacks. And 2 of those sheets a day, you get all the iodine you need, which is about 150 micrograms a day.
Excellent. I'll take a question from the chat. What is the role of avocado and nuts and other high-fat plant foods for people with coronary artery disease, heart disease?
I encourage people to eat an ounce of nuts every single day. That's with or without coronary artery disease. We have not just observational data, but a randomized controlled interventional trial showing not only an improvement of cardiac risk factors, like improvement in flow-mediated dilation, endothelial function, lowering cholesterol, etc., but like Predimed, for example, showed that those randomized to eat about a palmful of nuts a day cut their risk of stroke in half. And so one can kind of flip that around and say, look, not eating nuts doubles your stroke risk. And again, it's not just that, nut eaters happen to be health nuts and were like exercising more or something. No, these were people that were randomized at the beginning of this multi-year study by the thousands to either eat nuts or avoid nuts. Those who had nuts added to their daily diets suffered significantly lower stroke rates. So I encourage, that's one of the reasons nuts are on my daily dozen checklist of all the healthiest of healthy foods to try to fit into one's daily diet. There are really only two foods associated with literally adding years onto your life, and that individual foods. And one is dark green leafy vegetables with studies out of Japan, and the other is nuts, thanks to the Adventist studies.
Right. So just to put it in perspective for those who are new, a whole food plant-based diet is a very high carbohydrate diet. So when we talk about these fatty foods that are from the plant kingdom, it's recognizing that we need all these carbs. There was a question that came in. Most plant-based foods are obviously very high in carbohydrates. What advice do you have for someone who has been told to limit their carb content?
Someone who's been told they need to limit their carbs is being told they need to limit their intake of refined carbs, meaning refined grains and table sugar, essentially, which is a fantastic idea. And that's the primary source for carbs for most people. Most people get their carbs from donuts and pastries and white bread, or in New York City from bagels. And they're not getting their carbohydrates from sweet potatoes. They're not getting their carbohydrates from beans. They're not getting their carbohydrates from whole plant foods. And these refined carbs and added sugars aren't good for people. We should center our diets around whole plant foods, regardless of their macronutrient content, meaning regardless of their fat content, regardless of their carbohydrate content. The most important thing is, what is the source of those foods, right? So carbohydrates, as Dr. Katz likes to say, lentils and lollipops, kidney beans or jelly beans, right? These are all carbohydrates. What about fat? Fat could be lard, fat could be, walnuts, one of the healthiest foods. Protein could be kidney beans, or it could be, pork rinds or something. It's the source of those macronutrients that matters most. You can eat a really healthy, high-fat, a whole food plant-based diet, eating lots of nuts and seeds and avocados. You can eat a really healthy, low-fat, a whole food plant-based diet. The most important thing is you are centering your diets, the foundation of your diet: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, which are beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, mushrooms, basically real food that grows out of the ground from fields, not factories. These are our healthiest choices.
Right. A question from the chat related. There are some folks wondering about energy. If you are feeling tired, lethargy, you're getting enough sleep, and you're otherwise eating a plant-based diet, is there something you can do to boost your energy?
Well, one problem that people have when they switch to a plant-based diet is that they don't understand they have to eat more food. So if you go to a healthy diet, and your idea of a meal your whole life was a certain amount of volume of food on a plate, like this is what a serving is, this is how much supper is. You don't realize that whole plant foods are so calorically dilute. They tend to have so few calories per unit volume, per unit weight. You can't eat the same amount of food. You actually have to eat more food. And if you just ate the same small piddly portion they had before, you could actually become energy deficient. You can actually not get enough calories. I take these people, have them go online and do a little online calorie counter, or they go to a dietitian. They're getting like 700 calories a day. That's a starvation diet. Oh my, no wonder you have no energy, right? You're like a famine victim. But they're like, well, no, what do you mean? I'm eating all day. What's the problem? You got to eat more. And if your stomach can't handle it, you have to have smaller, more frequent meals. You may have to add some really calorically dense foods like dried fruit and nuts and, like trail mix kind of thing, or avocado, smoothies, ways to get more calories in you. Otherwise your body goes into energy conservation mode. So people who have tried these like crash diets, living off of like protein shakes and things like that, this is how they feel all day, is because they have no energy, because their body's like, oh my God, we're in a famine. You better lie in bed all day, because otherwise you're not going to make it.
Right. And on the topic of energy, what about coffee? Is coffee bad? And also there's an idea, a question that came in, coffee's effects on bone density. Can you comment on that?
Of course I can. In my chapters, in 3 books ago now, How Not to Die, my chapters on liver disease, on depression and Parkinson's, I talk about the benefits of coffee for the liver, mind, and brain. Coffee drinkers do seem to live longer, have lower cancer rates overall, but coffee may worsen acid reflux disease for people with heartburn, can exacerbate bone loss, can exacerbate glaucoma, and urinary incontinence. So there are certain groups of individuals for which I would not recommend coffee. And bottom line, I don't recommend anyone drinking coffee, but not because it isn't a healthy beverage for most people, but because every cup of coffee is a lost opportunity to drink something even healthier, and that is a cup of green tea. We have overwhelming evidence of the benefits of green tea, and I encourage people to try to fit it into their diet in addition to coffee, or even better, have 2 cups of green tea by replacing one of your coffee cups.
Great. We had some questions about fish consumption versus taking algae oil supplements. And I know one of your recommendations is that folks take a DHA supplement, especially at northern latitudes. Can you talk a little bit about how eating a little bit of fish may undo some of the gains of eating a whole food plant-based diet? Is that true from the evidence?
So latitude only has to do with vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin. And so at high latitudes, those getting inadequate sunshine or anywhere around the world may want to take a vitamin D supplement. In terms of DHA, in terms of this long chain omega-3, I do think people should consider taking 250 milligrams a day from a pollutant-free source. And there's the rub. The problem with getting one's long chain omega-3s, the EPA and DHA from aquatic sources, is that unless you have a time machine that takes you back before the Industrial Revolution, we have so polluted our world. Basically, everything flows into the sea. So all the mercury spewed from every coal plant in China eventually settles into our oceans. Everything builds up in the aquatic food chain. Now, yes, you can eat smaller fish, shorter-lived fish on the bottom of the food chain or close to the bottom of the food chain. Like if you ate minnows, it wouldn't be as much of a problem. But ideally, we should eat at the bottom of the food chain, which is plant foods, and to decrease one of the reasons is to decrease our intake of these toxicants like heavy metals or persistent pollutants such as DDT and PCBs, on down the list. And so that's the healthiest source of these long chain omega-3s. So that's the primary concern with fish, is that we just live in such a polluted world. One really cannot get polluted. You say, well, I get wild salmon. I mean, from what planet are you getting your wild salmon? I mean, it's all comes, now it's better than farmed. Farmed is even more toxic, but we really want to try to decrease our intake of these pollutants. And the way we do that is try to stay away from the aquatic food chain at higher levels.
I've heard you speak about this before related to Parkinson's. Can you tell us a little bit about what the role of diet is in Parkinson's?
Oh, I've got a whole slew of new videos coming out on Parkinson's. So I have videos currently on the site about preventing Parkinson's, which primarily has to do with avoiding dairy consumption, the food most associated with the development of Parkinson's disease. That we think actually may be, there's a number of different hypotheses. maybe the buildup of pesticides. You can actually do autopsies on Parkinson's brains and find higher levels of a particular type of neurotoxic pesticide that's found both in the dairy supply, in the brains of sufferers from Parkinson's disease, which may explain the relationship between dairy consumption and Parkinson's. But I also have videos on treating Parkinson's with a plant-based diet. There's a particular type of plant-based diet called a protein redistributed diet, where basically you save your high protein foods like legumes, your beans, split peas, chickpeas, lentils for the evening meal, such that when you suffer the side effects of that protein load, you're sleeping and you don't suffer the movement side effects earlier in the day where it can impair your movement. If you look at these videos, they are many years old. I just did a whole new slew of videos. There'll be for all the COVID-19. I dropped in this COVID-19, this month of COVID-19 videos, which is pushing all my nutrition videos a little farther back. But don't worry, it's coming up. Check it out. In fact, I may even do a webinar where people can, because I'm going to have so many videos kind of in the queue because I need to write my next book, that I'm going to have like 100 videos just waiting that are going to be up for the next year or so. And so I'm thinking of doing a webinar of, there's just like, people can up and down vote the 100 topics, and then I can just give people sneak previews of all the juicy stuff that's coming up. So maybe we'll do that, but that's going to be a few webinars down the road. I have one on B12 tomorrow, and then one coming up on statins, one coming up on angioplasty, all sorts of good juicy stuff at nutritionfacts.org.
Excellent. And there were a number of questions about B12. I will refer folks to your website for that. I want to take one question from folks who are part of the SUNY Downstate healthcare community. What advice would you give regarding diet and sleep management during medical residency, or, you know, for folks who have high intensity jobs that require them to be working at odd hours and long hours?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain point where you just need the hours. So obviously through sleep hygiene, you can maximize the sleep that you do get from making a quiet, dark, cool environment. There's a number of things you can do to kind of prepare for sleep. So I have a whole sleep chapter, talk about sleep hygiene in my How Not to Diet book 2 books ago. But no matter how well you sleep, if you don't get enough, then you're going to be impaired. And that's why medical training programs should follow in the footsteps of truck drivers and airline pilots, where they're forced to have a sufficient time in their schedule, because they're not just putting themselves at risk, they're putting other people at risk. Over the years, there's been a number of attempts at improving the working hours of residents, many of which have, even if they're on the books, have been ignored by residency programs. This continues to be a battle within medical education. Basically, it comes down to, surprise, surprise, money. Residents are cheap labor, right? And so, I mean, you know how much you have to pay a doctor to sleep overnight in a hospital? It's a lot of money. You're dragging them away from their families, right? You don't have to pay a resident hardly anything, right? And so it's just, for the bottom line of these hospitals, they're overworking these residents as cheap labor, but it's putting people at risk.
Thanks. I'm going to go back to another COVID-related question. As the states begin to open up, is it safe for folks to go out and meet with people? Tell us a little bit about the parameters through which we can see this. And maybe if you could answer both in relation to those who might be at higher risk, folks who are older, folks who have underlying conditions, and also answer for those who may not have underlying conditions and feel healthy.
It's really all about distance, distance, distance. There's all the controversy about masks my greatest fear is that people are going to get this sense of false sense of security from wearing face coverings, from wearing masks. Those masks are not to protect you. They're to protect other people from you. They're reducing the amount of little respiratory droplets you spew out every time you talk, every time you breathe. How do you protect yourself, regardless of your risk? You protect yourself by staying away from people. The worst is crowded, indoor, confined, poor ventilation environments for extended periods of time. So being outside, and so it's really interesting with all these protests recently, you saw these, you were either there participating or you saw these shots on TV, everyone outside crowded together, not keeping enough physical distance, but we did not see an uptick in cases. And we think it's because there's no greater ventilation than being outside. Being outside, even if you're relatively close to someone, is a low risk exposure. It's being inside, confined, with poor ventilation. And so for people at high risk, if there is community transmission in your area, I would encourage you to maintain this physical distancing as much as possible, or if you come in contact with vulnerable individuals. I don't care how young and healthy you are, if you're going to see the grandparents, you could put them at risk. So it's still critically important, if one can, and not everyone can certainly, but to maintain that distance. You cannot get the virus if the virus cannot get to you. And where does the virus come from? It comes from other people. Primary transmission is through these respiratory droplets. And so keeping your distance from people is the best way to prevent yourself until we have, until we're able to get rid of this virus through a mass vaccination campaign.
Thanks. I'm going to go to a few lighter things before we close. For
First, let me just say, Susan, it's so wonderful to see you. I want to give you a big hug. Oh my God, it's been too long. Anyway, okay.
It's a family here. What can we say? So what are some little changes? What are some of the first changes that you recommend people take if they are nowhere near eating a whole food plant-based diet that you think will make some of the biggest differences for them thinking about this moment in time?
And I think if there were just like 3 things to first add to someone's diet, it would be berries, the healthiest fruits, greens, the healthiest vegetables, and some form of legume. Some healthy protein sources, beans, split peas, chickpeas, lentils. That would be the first thing. If there were just 3 things I would first remove from people's diet, like the 3 worst things people are doing, number 1 would be trans fats, these partially hydrogenated oils, which thankfully are being legally removed from the food supply, which of course, that's really the best way to do it. Because you don't even have to think about it. So we should just remove toxic substances from the food supply. Speaking of toxic substances, number 2, processed meats, bacon, ham, hot dogs, lunch meat, sausages. These are known human carcinogens. We know they cause cancer. We try not to smoke around our kids. Why would we send them to school with a bologna sandwich? We know these foods cause cancer, and we should have similar regulations. Why are they served in schools? Why are they served in hospitals? And then number 3 would be liquid candy, soda, sugar water. We should not be drinking our calories in that form.
Great. And last question, what's your favorite documentary that you would refer people to about?
Oh my God, Game Changers. If anyone has not seen the Game Changers, this is the time. There have been wonderful documentaries, right? Forks Over Knives, What the Hell, blah, blah. Okay, but then the game was changed by Game Changers. Nothing matches the kind of Hollywood, they just had the budget, frankly, right? I'm nothing against the other documentaries, but what we needed is like something that had millions of dollars and the capital to put out some really high quality work. So nothing comes close. I mean, we already had the story, we already had the truth, we had the stories, we had this important information to convey. But the medium, the vehicle to which to get it out just did not have the kind of polish that the Game Changers did, honored to play a small part in terms of science advising for that true, juggernaut of a film. Everybody's got to see it.
Great, excellent. I'll give you one last word if you'd like to say something and sign off to our folks tonight.
Just the good news that we have tremendous power over our health, destiny, and longevity. The vast majority of premature death and disability is preventable with a plant-based diet and other healthy lifestyle behaviors. Thank you so much. Keep up the wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Greger. So thank you so much for joining us this evening and for your ongoing leadership, writing, video, podcasting, everything. It's just tremendous. And I really recommend everybody on in our meeting today, go and check out every single video you can get your hands on at nutritionfacts.org, because it's going to answer a lot of questions from a very scientific perspective. So now I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Rosenfeld to give us some closing thoughts about where we go as a community to rebound from COVID-19. And we're going to share some additional resources in the chat box, and we'll speak about them in a moment.
Got to do the famous unmute. So there's a quote that comes to mind that I think it was Anthony Trollope said that gentle persistence will always beat the labors of a spasmodic Hercules. So I think it's up to all of us to do that gentle persistence. And, now what we're talking about here, we call it lifestyle medicine for a reason. It involves a lifestyle change. It's not like a fad diet or something you go on for a day or two or a week or three. You really want to make sustainable changes in your life. And you sort of praise progress. You don't have to go from, the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. I believe the guy this year, I forget his name. He's striving for 77 is his, I heard today. Last year was 73 hot dogs in whatever it is, like 3 minutes. He's going for 77. So you don't have to go from 77 hot dogs to none, but you want to go in that right direction. And I think it's within the power of all of us to do that. As important as eating right is, don't forget other simple things. And I put out there, you just saw Dr. Greger walking on his treadmill as he was talking. The power of exercise is synergistic to what you do with your diet. And if you haven't read the physical activity guidelines from the government yet, they were updated in 2019. You should be getting 150 to 300 minutes per week of moderate activity exercise. So walking, dancing, things you could do while talking, or 75 to 150 of heavier exercise, along with maybe 2 days a week of some resistance or strength training, and get some sleep. Oh, and by the way, if you can't do all that exercise, the 10,000 step rule is not cut in stone. If you do 8,000, you still get benefits, even if you do 6,000, but 10,000 and a little bit up is really going to be best. And get your 7 hours of sleep. All-cause mortality is lowest with 7 hours of sleep per night. So, and it actually goes up if you get too much. If you start getting like 9, 10, 11, you actually die faster. So not only do you waste your life sleeping, but you die faster. So, get a reasonable amount of sleep and stay with the cause. If any of you are not already engaged with our committee at Downstate, just send me an email and you can get that off of the website, and we're happy to put you on the list and get you engaged. So thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Rosenfeld. And I want to also express my deep thanks to Susan for joining us this evening, and to my partners in crime, Beth and Rich, for putting this all together, and the Office of Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. As a representative of sort of lay people, grassroots folks in the field, I just want to make a shout out and encourage all of you, especially those who are newer to this information, to take the next step with us. This is not something that needs to be a huge mountain to climb, even though it may seem tremendously different from how most people live their lives, how most people eat. But this is within your reach, and it is all about your empowerment and your hope and your ability to overcome illness with food. So I shared some links in the chat box to visit our website. We have a really great calendar of additional events coming up. Especially, I want to call your attention to some of the culinary demonstrations that will be coming up. You'll get recipes, and you'll get a chance to watch and ask questions of chefs from many different walks of life, and to just try new skills in the kitchen. Some of this is about making a little bit more time to be creative in the kitchen, but also learning those skills around how you can do this easily with stuff that you can just buy off the shelf. Simple whole grains, legumes from a can, a fruit that you just wash and eat. It can be very simple. And so we want to just make it clear that anybody is capable of doing this with a little help. There's an opportunity for those of you who are interested to sign up for a peer mentor, a lifestyle mentor from our community, if you would like that. And I also want to call attention to a special program. We're going to be coming back together with the SUNY Downstate Committee on Plant-Based Health and Nutrition and many other community partners to present to you the Dr. Milton Mills talking about racial health disparities and their intersection with nutrition policy in particular. Dr. Mills will be with us on Wednesday, July 22nd, again as a webinar, 7:00 p.m. The link to register is there. And in addition, there are a number of folks in our world who are putting on programming in Spanish every Thursday night, including tonight, starting at 7:30. So if you know folks from your community who really need to learn in Spanish, please recommend those programs to them, which are a variety of demos plus educational programs with folks in the field. I want to again thank Brooklyn Borough President Adams' office for always being supportive of this mission and making it part of his platform. We're going to be presenting another demo-based program with Rachel and her team on August 3rd, and information will be going out shortly. Are there any other follow-up steps, Rich or Beth, that we should share with our groups tonight? Excellent. So with that, we will wish you a wonderful evening. There will be a recording posted on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to share the Facebook live stream video with other people who you might want to hear all of these, who need to learn all about this. And I just wish you all a wonderful evening and many happy days ahead, healthy days ahead with whole plant foods on your plate. Take care.